made some raspberry muffins with sort of toasted oats and things in them, and some bread as well, some soda bread. It was one of our chefs in the kitchen that taught all these primary school kids. I think there was about 20 of them altogether that came out on one day when we were closed. And it was lovely. They were so inspired by it. You could just see how enthusiastic they were about it afterwards, and quite a few of them said they'd like to become chefs. I don't know if that'll actually happen, but it was really nice.
Yeah, these moments in our lives that suddenly it becomes relevant. I did woofing.
Oh yeah.
And that's when it really started to crystallise for me, where I suddenly understood, oh God, it takes a lot to grow a good bunch of carrots.
Yeah, it does, definitely.
These should be valued, and when they're grown properly, they taste.
I know, phenomenal.
Potatoes straight from the ground.
I know, absolutely. That's not been stored in a fridge for over a year like they do in supermarkets a lot of the time. Yeah. Yeah, it is amazing.
Right. Well, how about again the interview? I just want to be a conversation. You know, please do feel free to ask questions and take the conversation where you like. I've just got a loose list of questions.
Okay.
Well, I'll do an introduction and then we can just wrap it.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Well, I'm here in Edinburgh Larder Bistro. Very, very happy to be talking with Eleanor Cunningham, who is the owner and founder of the Edinburgh Larder, and get the opportunity to try some of the delicious food and ask her lots of questions about the business. Thanks very much, Eleanor.
No problem.
Firstly, I suppose a good place to start would be, can you tell us about your business?
Yeah, sure. The Edinburgh Larder started out as a cafe just off the Royal Mile in the middle of Edinburgh about 5 years ago, and I've spoken to you a little bit about this already, but we started really because there just was not many places at that time in the centre of town that really supplied good Scottish food and talked a lot about what good Scottish food was. I think a lot of people have become quite confused over the last century or so about what Scottish food is. Got so many influences from so many different countries, I think that it's become a bit confusing, and I think people know that we have haggis and smoked salmon, that's about it really. So we wanted to take really good local seasonal ingredients and use them to make really exciting and different kind of quite simple but lovely food, tasty food. So that's what the cafe was set up to do, and wanted to do that near the Royal Mile just because it is the centre of Edinburgh and so many people come from all over the world to visit obviously Edinburgh as a city, and really wanted to show them and the local people and the people that work around the place what Scottish food was all about. So that was about 5 years ago, and then 2 years ago we set up the bistro in the West End because a lot of people had said it would be nice if, you know, a lot of locals don't go to the Royal Mile area for whatever reason, you know, they don't particularly want to go into the very centre of town, so they said it'd be nice if we could set up somewhere that was a bit more kind of in a community where people worked and lived. And we also wanted to set up somewhere where we could use more ingredients, more of the local ingredients that our producers have, because there's obviously a kind of cost issue in the cafe. You're not able to sell things at a great price, and even though we wanted it to be accessible to everybody, we did want to be able to utilise sort of foraged ingredients and things that we just couldn't afford to do in the cafe. So that was really why we set up the bistro 2 years ago, and our food here obviously is a little bit more kind of restaurant based, but also, you know, we're a bistro, so it's quite relaxed, and we try and make it affordable to a broad range of people as well.
So sourcing these ingredients locally, was it quite hard to find, or?
Not really, no.
Sounds a silly question.
Well, yeah, I mean, the difficulty is that some people don't sell very regularly or don't deliver regularly into Edinburgh. And I think a lot of the reason why restaurants have a wholesale sort of supplier that they order various different things from is because it means they can have 1 or 2 or 3 suppliers in their kitchen, and that's all they have to deal with, and it makes life really easy for them. We have between the 2 sites probably about 50 or 60 different suppliers, so it does make life a little bit more tricky for us. It's more labour intensive, it requires more thought because we don't want to just use any ingredients any of the time. We want to make sure they're seasonal. So, but our suppliers help us to do that as well, because we only obviously choose suppliers who produce things in Scotland. So, you know, we work with them closely to make sure that we're getting the best of what's available at any time. But I went around Scotland for about 6 months before I set up the cafe and did lots of trips to different sort of places. I spent about a month in Dumfries and did a variety of different trips where I went to lots of farmers markets and chatted to lots of producers and just tried to find out the best places to source things from. So that was a lovely thing for me to be able to do as well. Yeah.
Can you give me some examples of some of the local ingredients?
Well, on that trip to Dumfries, I went to Larder, who are an organic working community who have a farm down in Dumfries, and they produce their own cheese, and they have done for a really long time. They're one of the oldest producers of cheese in Scotland. Or the ones that are still going anyway. So they make amazing cheddar and something called criffle, which I think a lot of people will probably know about, which is delicious whiskey washed cheese. And it's really soft and very smelly but really tasty. So I went there, which was really inspiring. So they're one of our suppliers. We tend to kind of go around Scotland and choose our cheeses from different places. So we go to different dairies every couple of months to rotate our cheeses on our cheese board, really. But they're a great example of Scottish cheese. Who else do we use? There's so many. Fantasy is one of our suppliers, who are an organic vegetable supplier who are based in East Lothian. We also get a lot of our vegetable over the summer months from the Royal Edinburgh Community Gardens, who are just up in Morningside, so that's like 0 food miles, which is brilliant, and they're a lovely bunch of people and a great ethical business that work with the Cyrenians and employ people with lots of different backgrounds, so they're a great bunch to work with. Meat, we get a lot of our meat from kind of Ayrshire sort of region, so Ramsay's or Carluke are one of our suppliers, and Cairnhill Farms supply a lot of the meat for the bistro. We also use Peelham Farm, who are down in Berwick. They're an organic supplier as well. And then we get all of our beers and things from Scotland, as much alcohol as we can from Scotland. We can't get wine from here, obviously, but there's so many incredible breweries all over the place that, yeah, local beers are a great thing as well. But yeah, there's a multitude of different people and different people that we use at different times of year. We use somebody called Ben, who owns a company called Fungi and Forage, who supplies all of our forage ingredients for the bistro. Our head chef here, Kenny, used to be a forager and a fisherman as well, so he occasionally goes out and does a kind of bout of foraging himself, but to do it on a commercial basis you really need a licence, so Ben brings things in to us 2 or 3 times a week, and he never really knows what he's going to get because it depends on the weather and all sorts of different factors, so it's really exciting when he comes in with a big box of stuff that, you know, Kenny might know what it is sometimes and other times he doesn't, and it's a lovely thing to work with, to just sort of work it into the different dishes that we have on the menu. So he's a great guy as well.
I can imagine it's the chef's dream. You know?
Yeah, yeah. It does kind of take a bit of a different way of thinking, because we change our dishes quite frequently. There's 2 or 3 dishes that change on the menu every couple of weeks. So it's a bit of a different way of working. But I think when you get into that thinking of, you know, how long the seasons are and, you know, how certain things like asparagus are only available for a few weeks, it is quite exciting, and you do have to plan ahead and think what's coming up that's, you know, that I can use for the few weeks that it's around. It is exciting.
I love hearing about seasonality. The idea of shipping in the asparagus from Peru is something
crazy.
It really is.
Yeah.
There are so many complex problems with this.
Definitely.
Not least that asparagus takes a lot of water to grow, and in Peru there is problems with water supply. So
And there's not a problem with water supply here, and there's only really one producer of asparagus in Scotland, which it's a labour intensive thing. But I have visited their farm, and it's a fantastic place, and it does taste so amazing when you can pick it straight from the ground. Actually, there's a couple, I think Muddy Boots have started producing asparagus, and I had some from there this year as well in Fife, and it just is phenomenal. When they pick it that morning and you buy it and cook it, it just tastes amazing. It really does.
I noticed you used you mentioned organic a few times. What does this mean to you, and why does it make a difference?
I think it does make a difference, particularly with certain sort of things. I think root vegetables just taste amazing when they're organically produced. And I think in terms of, for me, I sort of prioritise local food over organic food. So not all of our food is organic. I just want to make sure that it is Scottish. Thank you. But yeah, so the priority for me is that we use local ingredients, and then if they can be organic as well, then that's great. I think there is a certain thing which comes with organic food where you know that it's going to be of a certain quality, and particularly if it's animal reared products, you know that there is going to be a certain standard of welfare for those animals, which is a nice thing to know, really. So that's what it means to me. It also obviously has a massive impact on the environment, which is important as well. But in terms of the flavour, I think you know that organic produce is always going to be high quality. That's just a given. So, it's sort of like a seal of approval almost, that, that it's going to be well produced.
I don't know if have you heard of the recent lawsuit that's been lodged against in the EU? Pesticide producer is now suing governments because it's not allowed to use a pesticide that kills bees.
Right, which is a massive problem at the moment as well, because bees are in real trouble. So no, I hadn't heard about that. So what has happened with it?
Well, I'm hoping that the governments or the right lawyers will come to the aid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being able to sue a government for loss of profit, because they're not allowed to negatively impact on the ecosystem. That puts a hell of a lot into. Well, it's essential. It's not a negotiable.
No, absolutely. That is crazy. And you can imagine it's one of those things that they have to really think carefully about, because it does set a precedent for future lawsuits, I suppose, if they go one way or the other. Yeah.
So we've just had a delicious plate of squid come from the kitchen. Can you tell us a little bit about this? This is gorgeous.
Good. So it's fried. It's squid fried in a beer batter. One of the local beers we normally use. And it's served with homemade mayonnaise, which is made with rapeseed oil, which is why it's a nice yellow colour. And it's got some foraged seasonal herbs through it. So there's lots of different things in there. I think sweet Sicily is one of them, but there's loads of different foraged herbs. And some salad, which is from Fantasy. So one of the suppliers that I talked about before. Yeah.
Yes, fantastic. With regards to sustainability, this seems to be high on your priority list. Why has it come to be on your priority list?
Lots of different reasons, I think. probably stems from the fact that I don't think enough people know about local produce and I think more people are thinking about it now. But it just struck me sort of 5 or so years ago when we were setting up the cafe that it seemed crazy that we were exporting lots of our lovely ingredients. Things like langoustine that you would see cropping up when you were on holiday in Spain and that you couldn't really buy in Scotland, which is daft, you know, and then we would be shipping in all this fish from all over the world, and it just seemed a crazy concept to me that we were doing that and obviously causing environmental issues and not using the great ingredients that we have in Scotland that we should be really proud of. So that was massively important to me, and I was vegetarian for quite a long time as well, so going back to eating meat happened when I opened the cafe, and I really wanted to be able to taste the ingredients that I was serving to people so that I could tell them what they tasted like and where we got them from and a bit about their background. So I decided to start eating meat again, but really wanted to make sure that the meat that I was eating was really well reared and well looked after, and that the people that were doing it cared about what they were doing. So I went to visit a lot of the farms where we got the meat from, just to talk to them about what they did, really. I think Pelham Farm were one of the first people that I did that with, and they're just an incredible bunch of people. They were so inspiring to talk to about what they did and why they did what they did, and they pretty much they are self-sufficient in that they grow a lot of their own seeds and things to feed their animals. Right. They do a lot of crop rotation, so you know that they look after the land that they farm, and they're just amazing place. It's a really beautiful place to go to as well. So I think the more that you speak to people like that about what they do and why they do what they do, the more inspired you are to use their produce, really. And
I'm very interested to explore how independent local businesses can be supported. And I've been reading a lot about economics to try and understand different thinkers about. So one of them is John Maynard Keynes. I quite liked what grabbed me about part of his writing is he talks about the distance between the enterprise owner and the enterprise, and that this makes a big difference. Absentee landlords often give rise to slum buildings, badly maintained, because the ownership, the person who gets the dividends, if you like, isn't aware, isn't connected, doesn't encounter the realities that surround the production.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's why it's really important for me to go out and visit the places where we get our food from, because it just it's really the reason why I set the business up. As you know, I've always been really passionate about Scottish food, and I've always gone around local farmers markets and chatted to producers about what they do, and just thought it's so incredible how much work they put into what they do and how passionate they are about their product, and how little return they get financially, and that they really do it because they absolutely love what they do. So just being able to have those conversations with people, I think, makes my job completely worthwhile, and taking our staff out to talk to them as well just means they can bring alive what they do to our customers. They can put down a dish in front of somebody and tell them exactly what is on the plate, but also a little bit about the ingredients and how they were made. So yeah, it's a great thing.
Is there enough support for local producers and independent businesses?
I don't really know. I don't think there is. So, I think it's massively difficult to set up a small business these days. You need a huge amount of financial backing to start with. I remortgaged my house to set up our business because banks just won't lend to restaurants that are, you know, new and haven't got a proven track record of making money. I think things are changing a little bit, but the restaurant industry is one industry where they're particularly cautious because so many people go under after a year or two. So there isn't much financial support to start with, and then there's crazy amounts of tax and, you know, all sorts of different things that impact you as a small business. A lot of our ingredients we buy in with no VAT on them because they're food products, and then we sell them and we have to pay VAT on them. So that is really tricky for us, and people say, well, just put your prices up then so that you can pay the 20% VAT on them. And you go, but then nobody will buy them because they're too expensive. So it's a really delicate balance. It's difficult. There's some fairly good networks of people, I think, within Edinburgh and Scotland, where you can go and chat to other business owners and people that have done it before. You know, Business Gateway are quite good for that, but also there's some really good just networks of people within Edinburgh you can go and talk to. But the financial side of things, I think, is massively difficult for small producers and small businesses. Yeah.
I get this impression that people who go into business are you know, there's a certain amount of valiance. You know, you've really got to take a risk, and that's of course associated with. I mean, it scares the bejesus out of a lot of people, thinking, "Oh no, I might lose everything." You're putting your house up.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to hear you mention Business Gateway. Mm-hmm. Have you found the Business Gateway and Scottish Enterprise to offer practical insights and support then?
I think they do, yeah. I think they have a lot of business owners who go and do talks for free as well, which is fantastic. So you can go and chat to them about what they do and develop links with people. You know, there's a lot of people there who might be accountants or, you know, from different walks of life who you can network with as well, and who will be starting up their own businesses too. So I think it's great from that perspective. I found it quite difficult to get hold of somebody to talk to at the business planning stage. So before I'd actually set up the business, I found it a bit tricky to get hold of somebody, but fortunately I had experience in doing that beforehand, so it wasn't too much of an issue for me. But yeah, I think they probably could do with a few more people, as everywhere could, to support what they do.
Right. Well,
do you have dealings with them, or?
Yeah, I've met a number of people involved in the Business Gateway and the Chamber of Commerce. They were very helpful to the Ragged University, I think they opened my eyes to the need for entrepreneurialism and businesses to be regarded as a source of knowledge. This is ultimately fed into this project of going around and talking to people who are on the front lines, creating businesses, facing the problems that you don't find in books.
Definitely.
Everything that it's easy to write a plan. The tricky bit I see is as realizing that and getting through the thick and the thin.
Definitely, and not everybody works in the same way. So if you're reading a book, you know, you might want to start halfway through it or at the end of it, depending on where you're at with your own business plan or the way that you work. So it was really great to know that going along to the courses that I did at Business Gateway, that there was business owners who had done it all as well, and you know, you could go and chat to at the end and gain their knowledge, and who were quite realistic as well about the challenges, because I think a lot of people go into it thinking, oh, this is my life's dream, you know, and it's going to be amazing, and actually it's unbelievably hard work, and you don't earn any money for at least a couple of years. So yeah, you have to be realistic about that, I think. Yeah.
I've read it's 2 years on average that you know, of blood, sweat and toil before you really become established. Is that to do with, do you think, the general public becoming aware of your business, that it becomes a feature in their landscape?
Yeah, I think it is. It always takes so long for you to develop a regular customer base as a food business. Even with the cafe, where there was a cafe before us, I think if a new business comes in there, then people are still a bit wary of it, and it takes them a long time to kind of think, oh yeah, I'll go there. So you just find, I mean, there's cash flow issues to start with as well. You have to pay a lot of suppliers for a lot of produce, and you won't get that money back for quite a while. You've got a lot of staff costs and things to think about, and your trade as a cafe business just doesn't even out for 2 or 3 years. You kind of have these massive fluctuations where you can't really predict how many people are going to come in from one day to the next, and then you get to this period at about 2.5 years where it just stabilises, and you know on a daily basis roughly, you know, there can be days that are hit and miss, but you know roughly what you're going to be making in a day and how many customers you're going to have in a day, and everything just becomes a lot easier. Yeah.
Part of the research that I've been interested in is an area called social capital. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it loosely describes situations where people choose to voluntarily associate with each other, where membership in that group serves as a free resource to those people. For example, entrepreneurs networking. You go out, you might have a drink or coffee, you know, and chew the cud. But knowledge, experience, contacts are exchanged.
Yeah.
And the benefits of being a part of that wider network are one of the, you know, it's a focus of what this body of research is about. I'm interested in understanding this in terms of business, because there's an interesting study I came across about friendships between managers of competing hotels.
Right. And what did that say?
That for every friendship, it brought in, these were large international hotels in Sydney, if I remember correctly. For every friendship they established, it brought in 246,000 Australian dollars to the locale.
Wow.
I've been trying to work it out, and I'm talking to entrepreneurs. So, do you have supportive relationships with what might be considered traditionally a competitor? So somebody in the same sector.
Yeah.
But you behave supportively to each other.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's not a massive number of businesses that do what we do in the restaurant world in Edinburgh, especially, I think. So there has been more people cropping up recently who have a similar ethos and, you know, really care about where their ingredients come from and using local produce. And I've never been particularly kind of competitive in that respect. I think the more people that open businesses of that type, the better, really, for, you know, for everyone. So there's lots of people like Blackfriars who have set up a bar down the road from our cafe, who we regularly go out and have a drink there, and, you know, they do amazing things. people for like Gardener's Cottage who've just got a lovely concept for their business, and I think we all kind of go around to each other's restaurants and eat out. We don't generally tend to have enough time to sit down and have a conversation very often, but whenever we're at a restaurant, you know, we'll always introduce ourselves and kind of say how much we've enjoyed it, and you know, I'm happy to spread the word about other places as well, because I think it's a really important thing to do. But I also have very close links with all the different types of businesses within the areas where my sort of businesses are based, because I think that community kind of aspect is incredibly important, especially in difficult times, which we have experienced recently in the West End with all the tram works going on. I think you really need to keep close relations with your neighbouring businesses, and you know, in any time really, but in those times it becomes particularly important. Yeah,
that is really refreshing to hear, because what I believe personally, one of the misnomers of going into business is not to help other people, because you've got, you know, the putting self before all others. I think there's strength in community.
Definitely, it makes you feel better about what you do, but also, you know, that creation of a community environment is a lovely place to work in, so you feel supported by other people. I think there is sometimes a tendency for small business owners to get so caught up in what they're doing and so panicked by the day-to-day running and the sort of financial problems that might exist, that sometimes they just tunnel away to themselves and kind of get enclosed. And I think I've been there where I've, you know, just had too much on my plate and not felt like I have any time for anything. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. So getting out there and chatting to other people and knowing that they're experiencing the same thing as you is, yeah, it's a great thing. It's a lovely supportive network to have.
You mentioned earlier food miles. I'd quite like to hear more about this. I went into a supermarket, forgive me, and in this desert I found onions from New Zealand, and
Wow.
I hit the roof. Inside my head I threw a tantrum, and I'm trying to understand how I can reduce this awful. Why would I buy onions produced halfway around the world?
Yeah, I think it's a completely crazy thing when, you know, there's certain things that you can't produce in Scotland, and that's fair enough, but onions are not one of them, so getting them from halfway around the world is completely daft. Yeah, and fair enough, we can't produce them around the calendar, but you know, you can get them from a lot closer than New Zealand, I would say, all year round. So yeah, having Europe on our doorstep, you know, is a great place to be able to source things from when the weather here gets to a point where we can't produce things in Britain. But I think a lot of people just don't look at that. You know, a lot of people are driven by having 5 people in their household to feed and not having a very good income, and the first thing they'll look at is price, and they won't think about where things come from. And it's nice to see the little British flag sometimes on things that you buy now, you know, that makes it obvious where what you're getting is from. But it's a difficult thing, and a lot of the time it is put down to how much income you have in your household and how able to afford local produce you are. But I think people are quite often surprised by how reasonable local produce can be, and going to the farmer's market or somewhere like Earthy that have, you know, a shop full of beautiful produce that are just displayed in the most incredible way is such a more pleasurable experience, I think, than going to the supermarket, which just feels like a chore, you know, whereas going somewhere like a farmer's market is an experience. It's a lovely experience, and chatting to people about what they've made and how you can use it and how you can cook it, and you know, it's actually not massively more expensive, and you feel like you buy what you actually need for the week you sort of think in advance about how you might use what you're buying, and you don't buy 3 for 2 just because it's, there's some big offer on whatever you're buying.
Yeah, I was. There's a lovely exercise I do. Like when I happen to go into a big store, I try and count how many products I come across that have been made within a 50-mile radius.
That's a good thing to do.
And it's I've never got over one hand.
No. Yeah, it is. It's tricky, definitely. And I can understand why people use supermarkets, because there is a massive convenience element there, and you can use them anytime. They're open all the time. If you're finishing work late, it's an easy thing to do. You can park a car nearby, I think for a large family you can understand that. And it's nice to see that more supermarkets are using local ingredients, but in the same token, I think I speak to a lot of the farmers who supply us, and they say that to scale up to the size of farm that you need to be to sell to a supermarket, you're basically not making any more money than you would do as a small farm supplying restaurants and things directly and going to farmers markets, because of the amount of money that a supermarket pays a farmer. So, Gartmorn Farm are one example in particular, where we get a lot of our poultry from, who have gone through this process of scaling up so that they can supply supermarkets, and then scaling back down again so that they only supply, restaurants and people directly through markets. And they say that there is not a lot of difference in terms of the money that they make as a business, but the effort that they put into doing what they do is hugely different.
I heard an interesting story about, it's an anecdote about Wallace and Gromit.
Always good.
Yeah. So cheese. And he was always mentioning these delicious local cheeses, Stinking Bishop and the like. And one of them got really, let's use a pun, cheesed off. Sorry. They had become so popular because they were inundated with these requests to scale up.
Yeah.
And they really didn't want to do this.
No.
Because it was artisanal, and they felt that it would change the nature of their product.
Yeah. I think cheese is one of those things where you really can tell that that's been done as well. The handmade element, using machinery instead of that is just, it makes a vast difference to the product. And Loch Arthur, who I was talking about before, are a perfect example of that, where they've been asked to do that time and time again, and they never have, because they know that it will make their product taste, feel, look completely different, and it just won't be the same. So they refuse to do it, which is great. They like it the way that it is, and they know that that's how it should be.
Something I'm interested in, and if it's not rude to ask, how many staff do you employ?
It varies massively on the kind of time of year, and obviously the festival's our busiest time, so it goes up a lot in that time, but it's between about 20 and 35 people, depending on what time of year it is.
This is very interesting. I'm interested in some of the thought that's coming out of the New Economics Foundation. And there's somebody called Michelle Long who's studying the amount of employment that comes out of small independent businesses as versus these large corporate concerns that are always looking to maximise their profit.
Yeah, and use machinery probably a lot of the time instead of humans. Yeah.
Well, I get a bit miffed going into the supermarket and then check, there's becoming less and less option to do anything else but scan your own product and bag it. Now, I'd like to know that somebody is, at least, if I'm buying a product, it's supporting a family or an individual.
Definitely, yeah.
And I saw one supermarket that was being run by 3 people.
Wow, that's crazy, isn't it? It really is. It is amazing to have that humour and interaction. I think I'll always prefer going to a till where you can actually talk to somebody as opposed to scanning things through yourself, which I think I've only ever had a minimum of about 5 issues with when I've tried to do that myself. You know, something always goes wrong and you're always in a hurry, and it's a pain in the neck using those kind of machines to scan things yourself. So yeah, I would always prefer to go and speak to somebody directly, and like you say, knowing you're supporting families as well. I think that is such a huge issue in this country. Whenever I go to other places, I'm always amazed by how many people there is out and about just doing things, you know, not just out in the community doing kind of activities. I remember going to Brazil once and I saw this guy doing something which must have been a really horrific job, but he was sweeping up sand next to a beach off a road, which was like blowing off his truck as quickly as he was putting it onto it. But it did make me think that just as like, it probably is a bit of an idea of hell as a job, but it was obvious that he'd been employed to do that to give him employment, you know, because it was sort of a pointless task, but it was like he was doing something, you know, and he was part of the community and he was involved with something. And I think there's just so many people in this country that aren't. And you can tell when you walk out on the street that there's just a lack of that. And it's a big problem, I think. Yeah.
Please describe your relationship with your staff.
I have a great relationship, with all of the people that work for us. It's lovely to know every one of them individually, and obviously that's not always possible in the festival when we have a massive influx of people that will only be with us for a month, you know, and I'm running about doing other things. But it's lovely to know who works for you, and I think developing that kind of relationship with people means that they enjoy their job more and they want to stay around for longer. And in the restaurant industry, that's a notorious issue, is that people find it difficult to retain people that work for them because the wages aren't amazing, and generally it's, you know, done by people that are doing something else as a first priority. They might be at university or something, and it's really important to me for people to feel like what we do is a career path and they're able to do it for the rest of their life if they want to, you know. I think it's always seen as something that you do while you're doing something else, you know, working as a waitress, whereas in a lot of other countries it's a real profession. So it's lovely to have a one-to-one relationship with everyone that works here and be able to go out and do supplier visits and things which inspire them but also make our business better, I think. Yeah.
You were mentioning earlier some of the things you did. Like I'd like you to share with the listeners some of the activities. I've walked in here. I see events written up on the lovely blackboards, and you know I hear you going out in schools. Please, We have regular events throughout the year. Ones that we always do are foraging courses, so we have them in spring and in autumn, and we do them with 2 different people, and we forage for loads of different things. The spring ones generally tend to be wild herbs, and then the autumn ones a lot of the time focused around mushrooms. And those are things which obviously our customers can come along to, but generally a couple of the staff will go along to them as well, just to learn more about wild ingredients and where things come from. So that's a great thing for our team to be able to be involved in. We do regular events through the year where we'll do special kind of dinners and things where we try and source ingredients from only within the EH postcode just to see how that can be done, or, you know, use one of our local beer suppliers and try and match some food with what they do, and just interesting things like that. So those are things that the team can get involved in as well. But the bistro's closed on a Sunday and Monday, so every once in a while we'll go out as a team and just go and visit some suppliers and
and do a bit of a drive around. The last one we did, we went to the chocolate tree, who I know you've talked with, and at the same time we then went to a couple of places that were around about sort of West Lothian, like we went to Whitmere Farm, and then we went to a cheese producer as well. So it's just great to be able to take the team out and do that kind of thing every once in a while, and it's a bit of a kind of team building activity, but also, you know, it's a great way to learn about what our producers do.
Well, you said that the home economics isn't done anymore.
Well, I think it is done in schools, but I think they have a real issue with finding teachers to teach it. So there's a real shortage of teachers teaching home economics apparently at the moment, which is really surprising to me, because, like, you know, I was saying to you before that chefs aren't paid an amazing salary a lot of the time, and teachers are paid a good salary. You know, they have reasonable working hours. It's a hard job, but they get lots of nice holidays. So it amazes me that more chefs don't want to be doing that rather than being, you know, in the kitchen 24/7. So yeah, something that we've done because of that is have kids come into the bistro to learn how to cook, and we've done it with a school in Edinburgh once and plan to do it again, but just show them quite sort of simple things to make. We did one at the beginning of the summer using raspberries, and made some nice muffins with sort of Scottish produce as well, like oats. Thank you. So yeah, it was lovely to see their reaction to what we were teaching them, and the chef in the kitchen, Kiva, who was teaching them, got a lot out of it as well. I think it was lovely to see that she'd had that kind of impact on a group of kids, and that some of them wanted to become chefs after they'd done it. Yeah.
I always treasure the moments when I helped, for example, peel vegetables and turn that into a dish.
Yeah.
I just savour the memories of my Auntie Bunty's clootie dumpling, which I can't find for love nor money.
They always are the ones that go missing, aren't they? The great ones, yeah.
So your connection with foods, and I suppose it's history and legacy of Scotland. Can you?
Yeah, I've lived in Scotland all my life, since I was 2, and there's some fantastic recipes and things that are from here that I think have been forgotten, really, and they come from a time where I think people were doing naturally what we do now. They were using seasonal ingredients and local produce because they were growing vegetables in their garden, and that's what they had to do to be able to survive, because they couldn't get them from anywhere else. And a lot of historical recipes kind of come from that place, I think, where people were a lot more self-sufficient, and for us it's a great thing to look back at, because that's what we do, and you know, it makes it easy for us to sort of look at recipes and think, well, we can produce that at whatever time of the year. But it's a lovely part of our heritage as well. I think Scottish people are such a proud country, and they're generally not about their food. For some reason, they're very proud people, but yeah, there isn't that sense of pride in our foods. And you know, there might be around Burns Night where we get together and have haggis, but that's really the one time of the year where I can think of that people do that, and maybe St Andrew's Day. But yeah, there's not a lot of that happens, I don't think, of celebrating what we produce here. So
just to give the listeners an idea, we've just had 2 plates of pork belly and a medley of roast vegetables, and it looks absolutely stunning. It is like a painting. The colours are vibrant, it smells delicious, and it's presented just stunningly. Can you tell me a little bit about these ingredients?
Yeah, there is courgettes, which are probably likely to have come from the Royal Edinburgh gardens, which are just up in Morningside, so very close by. We get a lot of ingredients from them over the summer months, when they're able to produce them, really, up until the autumn, and then, you know, they disappear until the spring because they don't have a lot of polytunnels and things up there. But a lot of this veg here will have come from there. We've got some green beans as well, and some nice new potatoes that have probably come from Carol's Heritage Potatoes. That's where we get most of our potatoes from. And then we've got some pork belly as well, which will probably have come from Cairnhill Farms, who are just on the way through to Glasgow. So yeah, they're a great farm.
Well, it is exquisite.
Thank you. I'll let Kenny, our chef, know.
Yeah, I was fortunate enough to a friend, the brother of a friend once needed a place to stay as he was stopping through Edinburgh, and I was delighted to find that his passion was food, and he was quite disgruntled at the fact that hospitality staff are not as respected as they should be, like they are maybe in Italy or in France.
Yeah.
And every night he would cook from the Larder gastronomique.
Wow.
And insist on me trying this food, and it was just fantastic. So I see hospitality staff as practicing an art. It's tricky to make people feel welcome, comfortable. Food has been around since the dawn of time. We've come around it. We talk. It bonds us.
Yeah.
So, please do tell your chef.
I will, definitely. Yeah. I think that is it is a problem in this country that people just don't see this as a career, and I think the chef side of things is different, a little bit different. People tend to see more of that as a kind of long-term career, whereas the front of house positions are less so. I think unless you're in management, it's not necessarily something that people see as a long-term career. So that's something that we are trying to change here, and I think it is changing in that people now see this job as something that you can learn a lot about, because if you're using ingredients like this and learning about where they come from and when they're at their best, then that makes it an exciting job all of a sudden. It's not just putting a dish down on a table in front of people, it's telling them about what that dish is and how it was made and where the things come from, and it becomes more exciting to be involved in, I think, which means that we're able to retain people that work with us for longer, which is great.
Well, every time I've come in, it's been nice to be greeted by staff. Not for any other reason that they're actually genuine. It's a person. You know, they smile and they're glad that I've come in, and it feels like I'm talking with a human being rather than a role.
Yeah.
What do you look for when you're looking to employ someone?
A love of food is pretty much it, really. That's kind of the first and foremost exciting thing, is when you find somebody that, you know, that loves food and that is willing to learn more about food. It doesn't particularly matter what their background is or how much experience they've had. It's just somebody who's excited and passionate about working with good ingredients and who likes eating, really. Yeah, that's important.
So, am I right in saying you're part of the slow foods movement?
Yeah, I've always been really interested in what slow food do, and I was on the committee for Slow Food Edinburgh for quite a few years, until just after the bistro opened, at which point I also had a baby and everything became a little bit too much, and I had to kind of take a step back, just for my family, really, because I wasn't really seeing them at all. So it's something that I really want to get back involved with, though. I do still keep in touch with them regularly, and we do film nights up at the cafe where we have like a bowl of sort of hearty food and sit and watch a food related film, which is really interesting. We do them once every few months and they've been really popular, so I kind of keep involved with them in those ways and go along to events and things that they're doing. But I would like to get involved with the committee again. I think I'm going over to Terra Madre in Italy in October, which I don't know if you have been there yourself, but
no.
It's probably the biggest food festival in the world, and it's
I've seen a film. The chef butchered a pig and cut it all into different cuts and made it into theatre.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things. But please tell us more.
It's a massive food festival in Turin, which happens every 2 years, and it brings together food communities from all over the world. So producers, there's a massive producers area with, I think if you kind of think about it on a scale of every sort of food festival that we have in Scotland, but then multiply that by pretty much every country in the world, and everyone comes along and just shares the best of what they do. So there's incredible artisan cheeses and, you know, charcuterie and breads and all sorts of incredible local ingredients that you can go and try and chat to the producers about. And then there's lots of talks with people who are instrumental in the food world, from everywhere and from all kind of walks of life, from producers to chefs and all sorts of things. And I've just spoken to so many people who have said that it's changed their life in terms of what they do, that they love what they do already, but that speaking to other people from around the world about what they do has just brought it so much to life for them, and just, you know, been an affirmation of why they do what they do and why they love it so much, and that it's just an unforgettable event. So I'm really looking forward to going over. It's the first time that I've been. I'm going with a lot of people who are involved with slow food in Edinburgh, and a lot of the producers from Scotland and the chefs from Scotland, and we're all going over as a big group to spend some time in Italy and enjoy lots of amazing foods. And I'm sure after that I won't be able to stop getting involved more with slow food, because it will be such an inspiring thing to be involved in.
So yeah, it's very much a reaction to fast food. This idea of standardising and maximising and
it's all about people kind of remembering what it is to enjoy food and sit around a table and actually take time out with your friends and your family and enjoy what you're eating, and take time to make what you're eating, and, you know, share in that enjoyment of being able to cook and from raw ingredients, and just think about where your food is coming from. So I think everybody gets so consumed by life that they're running about in a whirlwind all the time, and they're taking their car to the supermarket and they're finishing work late, and then they're buying a ready meal and they're going home and they're cooking it for 5 seconds, they're sitting and eating it in front of the, you know, the TV and blah 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 blah. It's just this kind of rat race of madness that has consumed people, and they just don't take time to sit down anymore and enjoy food and have a nice conversation with people. It's such an enjoyable thing to do, and making something and cooking something can be incredibly enjoyable as well. I know it's not something that everybody's been brought up with, so it's not something that everyone feels is easy to do necessarily, but it is a really enjoyable thing to do. And I think there's a sense of pride in making something that tastes amazing that you can sit down and share with people. It's just a lovely thing. So that's really a lot about what slow food is about, but they also have incredible projects all over the world where they do things like they're setting up 1,000 gardens in Africa, so that people are able to sustain their life and their family and grow produce so that they can live from the land, but also learn how to do that and pass it on to, you know, through generations. So there's projects that they do all over the world like that are just incredible things and are changing, I think, our relationship with food for the better.
I was looking up the arc of food recently.
Yeah.
So this idea of I think it's people nominate a food or an ingredient that's to be preserved that's unique.
Yeah. It's a great thing. It sort of helps to capture the really traditional processes that might otherwise become extinct pretty much. Things like Arbroath Smokies that have been made in Scotland for generations, and without people deciding that they're going to dedicate their life to continuing to make them, that recipe or that procedure could completely die out. So it's about maintaining those really important historical ways of producing things that are part of Scotland's history or part of anywhere's history.
Of course, it doesn't take very long for knowledge that's been taken hundreds of years to obtain to disappear, a matter of a couple of generations.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can think of a nice example, not in food, but there are some forms of steel which still can't be reproduced. The ingredients, the technology that went to making them disappeared in Yorkshire.
Yeah. Wow.
And the result is we can't make the same technical things from them.
It is amazing, isn't it, when you kind of live in the world of now and you think that we must be so much more advanced than anything that's gone before, that we must be able to learn how to make those things again, and we can't. It is funny, yeah. But it's so important, I think, to remember those things that have been done in the past. And there's a lot of things which are going out of production, I think, because people just have been swept up in doing other jobs and feel like they need to go off and make more money, or it's important to retain those parts of our heritage, I think.
Friends recommended some time ago that I go and do woofing, which is worldwide work opportunities on organic farms. So I volunteered on the west coast of Scotland. And it was the first time I understood this is how much goes into a bag of tatties.
It's phenomenal, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially in the winter months, it's a hard job. Yeah.
And I'm outraged at what I never had. For years, my diet was appalling. It made me feel bad.
Yeah.
I never. Food was a fuel.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I think that is the way that their life is for whatever reason, and yeah, it's difficult, I think, to kind of find opportunities to change that. For some people. So yeah, my brother worked as a whipper for quite a while as well, and it was amazing to go to some of the farms that he worked on, and some of them were up near Aberdeen and just very close to the coast with really tough elements, and yeah, it's amazing what people do, and how they can lose their whole crop if you get a bad year of weather, which you do quite frequently in Scotland. It's tragic. I think the last few years have been unbelievably difficult for farming because it's been so erratic, the weather.
I'm trying to work out in my head how practical it all is. Do you foresee? Do you see it as an achievable and sustainable thing? Producing locally and shopping locally, and being employed locally.
I do, yeah, and I think it's happening more, which is great. I don't know that it could be 100%, all the time, obviously, but There are people like Whitmere Farm who have set up in probably one of the toughest areas that is possible to farm in, on a slope, growing vegetables, you know, and have proven that you can do it if your heart and your mind are in the right place. So I think there's a massive issue with land in Scotland. I think a lot of our land is owned by far too few people. And that's an issue that we need to get over. But I think it definitely is more possible than it is now. Yeah, absolutely.
That's an interesting point you've raised, the idea of land reforms. And I know the Crofting Commission has done some important work preserving. And I know that the Royal Society of Arts, and particularly Anne Packard, has been championing land reform debates.
Yeah.
Where do you see that fitting into a more, a more sustainable society? I suppose the cultural context.
I think at the moment it's incredibly difficult for a lot of people to set up sort of small holdings and farms because it's just not possible to get hold of small areas of land. My brother tried to do it for about 5 years. He was only looking for 5 to 10 acres, and a lot of farmers just weren't willing to give up that amount of land, that small an amount of land. And he got to the point where he just gave up. You know, he really wanted to do it, but he just found it so difficult that he gave up hope. So I think that's a real big issue, because there are a lot of people at the moment who would love to do that kind of thing, and you know, it's nice that it then enables things like cooperatives where people decide that they want to get together with a group of people and do that. But we really need more of that to happen to be able to create a more sustainable place where we can buy food that we've grown in Scotland, and you know, where more people are able to do that. And at the moment there's a lot of areas of farmland which are great for farming but aren't even necessarily farmed and are quite difficult to get hold of land in, so it is a problem.
Thanks for putting that on the radar. What issues do you think you've become aware of that you think really should be on the radar, should be on the table for people to discuss, to become aware about, to become informed, and ultimately for us collectively to try and find solutions to?
I think the land thing is one. I think it would be lovely if there was more ability to farm in Scotland, and I think it's fantastic what people like the Cyrenians have done, and you know, the Royal Edinburgh Community Gardens, where they've taken a plot of land up in a hospital grounds, where there's 10 acres apparently of land in the middle of the city, really, which was not being used for a long time. It used to be an orchard and a vegetable garden for the hospital, and that's where the people that were in the hospital would go and work, and it enabled them to recover more quickly because they were able to go and do that. And it sat being unused for a very long time, and they said, can we just have an acre of it and see how it goes? And they've built it up to a point where they're now supplying only a couple of commercial restaurants, but they are supplying restaurants with what they're growing, and as a result of that, it's helping the people that are, you know, in the hospital, and also they're saying that they're happy to give them more land and for them to be able to utilise more land that wasn't being used. And I can't remember how many years it wasn't used for, but there's areas of land like that all over the city centre, which I think people are becoming more sort of aware of, and actually trying to get support to be able to develop them and put grow vegetables and set up community gardens. And I think it's a lovely thing. There's one down in Leith, Links as well, which I saw recently that is being developed down there. So I think it's fantastic to see things like that cropping up all over the city. That's a great thing, that people are growing their own vegetables and able to go along to those sorts of places to learn how to do that and be supported to do it themselves and take away something that they've grown to cook with. But I do think the cooking issue is a massive thing. I think it's something that people have just forgotten how to do, and unless your family at home are very, cook every evening and are able to teach you what ingredients are and how to cook with them, then it's something that's, it's difficult for people to do. Not everybody knows how to cook a meal from scratch, and I think that's a big problem. So that is something that I would like to get more involved with in future, is teaching people how to cook and what an enjoyment it can be to cook your own meals.
Are you aware of the Cyrenians' fair share?
Yeah, well, I'm aware of the Cyrenians. I don't know what the fair share is. No.
The Cyrenians always seem to be forging out, cutting paths and breaking new ground all over the place. Part of it is a food bank.
Oh yeah.
In Leith, and it takes donations and rescues food from landfill.
Right, fantastic.
And they also teach people how to cook. I'm just going to
put some money on my parking, which I've realised has just run out, which is terrible. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, not at all, not at all. We're not on ceremony. But part of what they do is they teach people how to cook. So for a lot of people volunteer who might need to become an active part of the community.
Yeah.
Nutrition's a big part of that. Going out and eating some processed, frankly, crap.
Yeah.
That has been stripped of all nutritional content. That really doesn't benefit anyone along the chain.
Yeah.
But I've been very, very impressed by their work, reducing the amount. Of course, if you save food from going to landfill, it reduces the amount of methane that's produced, which is, I think, 20 times as damaging in terms of climate change.
Yeah.
As simply CO2. So
they are an amazing group of people. They really are. What they've done for the community, I think, and for vegetable, not only vegetable production in the area, but helping people to grow vegetables it's amazing, and all these other things that they're involved with as well, like that it's a really fantastic thing.
I suspect I already know your answer, but I don't know the details around it. Would you consider scaling up your business and franchising?
No. I'm really interested in keeping it in Edinburgh, because I think that's a big part of what our business is, and the name of it, Edinburgh Larder, kind of suggests that it should be here. I definitely am interested in developing it, so doing more things like outside catering, and which I think is just the quality of food that you generally get when you order a business lunch or a buffet is horrific. So so that is we do a lot of outside catering at the moment, but I'd definitely like to develop that aspect of the business and use more local and seasonable and sustainable food when we're doing deliveries. So that's a definite area of the business I'd like to expand, and I think we probably will have more units in Edinburgh. Just as a result of that, really, we're going to have a bigger kitchen to be able to sustain the number of orders and things that we've got coming in. But that's really the area of growth that I see, and hopefully being able to have more space to allow people to come in and learn how to cook as well. That's something that I think I would really like to do more of in future. But no, I think if you develop a franchise, you can't have your eye on what everyone's doing all the time and know how things are being done, and naturally I think it just becomes more and more about cutting costs, and that's not really what our business is about. We obviously need to make money to be able to operate as a business, but it's not about cutting corners and squeezing every penny that we can out of things. We care much more about what we do than that. Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on working with big businesses and corporations? This is just, again, I'm interested in the conversations between scale of business.
We don't. I'm trying to think of a business that we work with that's a really big business, and there aren't any really. I don't think we have a lot of our. We order a lot of packaging from Vegware for things like our outside catering events, and we do the farmers market. So I suppose they would be one of the biggest businesses that we work with, but they're still an independent business and they're a very ethical business. So yeah, and we obviously supply a lot of larger businesses, and when we do deliveries and lunches and things, we obviously supply to a lot of larger sort of finance businesses and things, but actually the majority of the businesses that we deal with when we're doing catering is arts organisations, and the university. We do a lot of catering with them as well. So yeah, really our world is a world of small businesses, I think. Yeah.
Well, I'm aware that you've got to be conscious of time. So coming up to 1:30 now. Just to round things off. Well, if people come to Edinburgh Larder, bistro or cafe, what would you like them walking away with going on in their head? I think predominantly just to have had a really lovely experience and enjoyed the food and thought that it tasted good. And if they pick up any of the other things around that we have, on the blackboards about the local produce that we have, or have an interaction with one of the people that work here about where things have come from, then that's all the better. But really, ultimately, I think I just want people to have an enjoyable experience. Yeah. Well, I hope that you'll share more about your vision for business, and even contemplate doing a talk one day.
I'm sure we could do that. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much for your time, and the food is just exquisite.
Thank you. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Thanks.
Cheers.